topic here at home right now, a bill that would temporarily halt the president's plan to allow thousands of Syrian refugees to come into this country. Listen.
Individuals say that we should have a religious test and that only Christians, proven Christians, should be admitted. That's offensive and contrary to American values. I cannot think of a more potent recruitment tool for ISIL. Apparently they're scared of widows and orphans coming into the United States of America as part of our tradition of compassion. First they were worried about the press being too tough on them during debates. Now they're worried about 3-year-old orphans.
So right now, the author of that bill, North Carolina Congressman Richard Hudson, goes on the record with us this evening. Congressman, welcome. Good to have you here.
Great to be with you.
So how does that feel for you when you hear the president say that you're basically just afraid of some widows and some orphans and that you have no compassion?
Well, it's disappointing to hear the president politicize this issue like that. But this is a common rhetorical device he uses where he sets up a straw man, some fake person who said some wild statement, and then he contradicts it. But the truth is, no one is saying block any religious group. No one's saying block all refugees. All we're saying in the House is let's stop this process, because your own FBI director has said we can't do proper background checks on most of these Syrian refugees.
I think a lot of people listen to this argument and they just think that it's reasonable to sort of tap the brakes a little bit and to take some time on this. What's your sense for how fast the White House wants to move on this and what their reaction is going to be to your bill?
Well, I'm hopeful that the president will come around. We're going to have a vote tomorrow on this legislation. Very common sense legislation. Just says let's simply stop the flow of these refugees unless and until the FBI director can put a background process in place that he's confident of, and then the Secretary of Homeland Security can verify that these refugees are not a threat. Pretty straightforward. The president issuing the veto threat just shows he's out of step with the American people. The American people want to know, especially in light of ISIS coming out and saying they're going to use this refugee crisis to infiltrate America. Yeah. Well, I believe them. And so let's make sure we've got a process in place to protect the American people.
There's an interesting piece in the National Review by Andrew McCarthy that says that there is indeed a religious test, actually, for people who are refugees and people who are seeking a safe haven. They have to prove that they have been persecuted, that they're seeking that safe haven for a reason. And clearly, Christians have been persecuted. Muslims have been killed in greater numbers than anyone else, really, in this region. But the discussion about your religion and why you are seeking some safe haven is part of the process, is it not?
Well, the president's just making this up. No one is saying that we ought to block folks based on their religion or give preference to folks based on their religion. All we're saying is let's put a vetting process in place that the experts, this isn't Richard Hudson saying this. This is the FBI director appointed by President Obama saying that the process is broken. We can't properly vet these refugees.
Yeah. It looks like the FBI director and the president are sometimes on different pages with this. What do you think about that?
Well, the president's also on the different pages than the American people, because I live in Concord, North Carolina, and I go home every weekend. And this weekend, people, not just Republicans, but Democrats, folks I ran into all over town, are worried about these refugees, and they want to know why can't we get a process in place to vet them or don't allow them in. And that's what our legislation does.
It's raising a lot of questions about why we didn't help them more in their homeland. I'm sure they would have their preference would be to stay in their village where their people have lived for centuries. But that was not to be, given ISIS's presence in those areas. Sir, thank you very much. Good to have you with us tonight. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Martha.
So should the U.S. only take in Syrians who are Christian? That is a question that has been raised. Listen to this.
We can be compassionate, and we can also be safe.
Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. Can he bring both sides together with what he says is simple common sense in this issue? Laura Ingraham joins us on that to respond next. Plus, On the Record has continuing coverage tonight of the hunt for terrorists behind the Paris attack. Have they identified the mastermind? They are taking their time on this. They want to get it right. We'll let you know as soon as we get anything. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Eggland's Best Eggs. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
There's only one egg that just tastes better, fresher, more flavorful, delicious. Only one egg with better nutrition, like more vitamins D, E, and omega-3s, and 25% less saturated fat.
Only one egg good enough for my family.
Because why have ordinary when you can have the best?
Eggland's Best. The only egg that gives you so much more. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
Announcing the Holidays on Us sales event from Kia. It's our most joyful event ever. We'll pay your first 2 payments and no payments due until spring. Plus, get 0% financing on the Kia Optima. Only at the Kia Holidays on Us sales event.
You get a cold. You can't breathe through your nose. Suddenly, you're a mouth breather. Well, just put on a Breathe Right strip, which instantly opens your nose up to 38% more than cold medicine alone. Shut your mouth and say goodnight, mouth breathers. Breathe Right.
Who wants to try?
Before earning enough cash back from Bank of America to stir up the holidays. Before earning 1% cash back everywhere, every time. And 2% back at the grocery store. Even before they got 3% back on gas. All with no hoops to jump through. Daniel, Vondi, and Sarah decided to use their Bank Americard Cash Rewards credit card to sweeten the holiday season. That's the spirit of rewarding connections. Apply online or at a Bank of America near you.
Today, my mom has a cell phone she actually enjoys using, the Jitterbug. It's so easy to use. It has big buttons and a powerful speaker.
And with Great Call's exclusive 5-star service, one touch and you'll be immediately connected to 5-star agents who can confirm your location and get you the help you need.
Service starts at just $14.99 a month. Buy a Jitterbug today and get twice the monthly minutes for life at Best Buy, Rite Aid, or Sears.
Fox News Channel on Sirius XM. Your favorite shows on Channel 114. Plus every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News headlines 24/7. Channel 115.
Nothing captures a perfect moment like a photo. This holiday season, share your favorites with holiday photo cards from Vistaprint. Find a design you love from traditional to trendy in our new 2015 collection. Upload your favorite photos, then tie it all together with a heartfelt message. Best of all, you'll save 50% on all holiday cards in all styles, sizes, and stocks when you use promo code CARD50 at Vistaprint.com.
Seriously, who doesn't love cookies? Cookie Jam, the fun and free game played by over 35 million people. And now the 2014 Facebook Game of the Year.
Bravo!
Float through Bakery Islands, match 3 sweets, and create pastries from around the world.
C'est bon?
Play hundreds of levels with your friends. Download now for free on the App Store, Google Play, or on Facebook. Cookie Jam, an SGN game.
The deadly Paris attacks leaving some in America saying that we need to be careful, that prudence is not a lack of compassion. Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, like our last guest, the congressman, says that religion, when it comes to the refugees, is not the primary issue. Here he is on that today.
We can be compassionate, and we can also be safe. That's what the bill that we're bringing up tomorrow is all about. It calls for a new standard of verification for refugees from Syria and Iraq. It would mean a pause in the program until we can be certain beyond any doubt that those coming here are not a threat.
All right, today, so radio talk show host and editor-in-chief of LifeZette joins me now. Laura Ingraham goes on the record. Hey, Laura, good to see you tonight.
Hey, Martha, good to see you.
What's your take on this whole thing?
Well, I think what you're seeing in the public is an absolute lack of confidence in the federal government to look out for the interests of the average American. And so Paul Ryan's using the language of Obama when he said we're not going to have a religious test. I think that doesn't sit well with people because you're now using the language of the left to advocate for a new Republican way forward. So it's nice that we have a pause. But I think what most people are looking for, and I think all the polling on this shows that this is the case, We want American leaders, Republicans, Democrats, to look out for America. We have to be first compassionate to the American people, the American workers, the American families. And when you have the reports that you just aired on Fox about individuals trying to make their way up from Honduras to the United States using fraudulent identification, it reminds us of just how dangerous the situation is, Martha. And I think all the people watching tonight, they have to remember that the federal government has failed to vet refugees in the past. We've had Somali refugees returning to fight with al-Shabaab, the Islamist group in Africa. We've obviously had massive fraud that the Wall Street Journal has written about with refugees using false identification to get family members in. So I think a pause, absolutely. Nobody's talking about a religious test. We're talking about a test of leadership for the American people to finally see their leaders, both Obama and the Republicans, standing up first and foremost for the American people. That is their sacred obligation.
You know, the word compassion I find interesting in this case, because you wonder, you know, if we had enough compassion for these people when they were in their villages in Syria.
Right.
Hundreds of thousands of them. And, you know, the red line was crossed and we didn't go in. And people were, you know, John McCain and Lindsey Graham were screaming from the rafters that something needed to be done to help these people. And I don't remember the president talking about that we needed to be compassionate towards them at that point. But now that that whole thing has blown up for these people and they're trying to make their way to other countries, now it's incumbent upon us, and especially Republicans and conservatives, you better be compassionate now, Laura.
Well, I've never in my life, when I worked for President Reagan right out of college in his last few years in office, I had never have seen a president of either party go overseas and essentially turn into a political pundit, which is what the president did yesterday. His behavior was reprehensible yesterday in Europe to call out the duly elected governors of half of the states of the United States and basically call them bigots and stupid and intolerant and frankly anti-American. That's what he did overseas. So if he thinks he's going to cool this off with that kind of rhetoric, well, he can think again. I think the American people are just about fed up with this. And I think the reason all these people are flocking to these outsider candidates, not just Trump, but Cruz and even Rand Paul and people like Ben Carson, is because they believe the old cabal of the establishment has failed the people. So the call for compassion, give me a break. When's the last time the White House had compassion, for instance, in the IRS scandal, or compassion for what's happened to the American workers who've seen a marketplace flooded with illegal immigrant labor and fraudulent push for STEM workers? I don't see a lot of compassion for what's happened to the American worker in the last 8 years.
Well, with all the fights there are out there right now, that seems to be the one the president wants the most. We'll see how it goes. Laura.